Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Konich-Yeehaw podcast. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Jared.
And today we wanted to talk about kid-friendly anime, right? There is this kind of like dichotomy of like some adults think all anime is for kids, and then anime fans are like, no, that's not true. And I mean, it's not true, right? But then it gets, confusing. Like, well, then what is okay for kids? And things like that. Especially since, to someone who doesn't watch anime, it all kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
You can't tell just from a name and a thumbnail.
Of course.
Essentially.
So I think how we want to at least start this out is that how we're defining anime for kids is going to be 14 and under and 15 and up. So like 14 and under is going to be very PG for the most part. It also is going to come down to like parent preference, mostly on violence.
Yes. Well, and even on some sexual things, honestly.
Yeah.
So obvious, also maybe not as obvious, but we are not parents.
Yeah, we're not parents.
Just were once kids who were also navigating anime on our own, and I'm sure there are some things that we watch that we shouldn't have.
Oh, most definitely.
Things like that. So this is more of from experience than anything else. And also, as you were saying, kid friendly, quote unquote, is very relative.
Yes.
So some parents are more okay with violence over sexual things, and some people there's a lot of anime out there where, and we'll talk about a few of them, where the most sexual it will get is just a character with really big boobs.
Yeah.
And that's totally just a preference thing.
And we've talked about this in other episodes, is that the older the show, the more okay it is to be like, I guess, sexual. So as going back to like Ranma, it's like that was the 90s.
Yeah.
That was like open chest, like everything was
nipples
shown.
out.
Yeah. And then go into the 2000s that has like bloody noses and like very suggestive, but those shows were still like
marketed to
like
kids.
TV 14,
right? Yeah.
Or lower, TV 14 or lower.
Yeah.
And so I'd say more recently there are probably more shows that are, it's more okay, you are going to be sexual or you are not going to be, and there's less gray area.
Right. So because assuming that, these are kids watching anime and just watching it on the family TV, we're going to be kind of doing this by streaming service.
Yes. So
there are many ways to watch anime.
Yeah. We sail the 7 seas and do not pay for streaming services.
Yeah, we don't. We pay for streaming.
Yes.
We don't use streaming services to watch anime.
Yes, we don't use streaming services to watch anime. But not everyone does that. Like the average anime watcher probably uses some sort of streaming service.
Right.
Most likely either Hulu or Netflix.
Yes.
If you really want to get into anime, then you can go into Crunchyroll.
Yes.
Crunchyroll and Funimation, they used to be two separate services, but earlier this year they were bought out, and so now they're all under, I believe, Funimation.
All under Funimation.
I used to Crunchyroll, one of those. Basically, there's only one now, so you don't have to worry about, I want to watch all the anime, but do I need to pay for Crunchyroll or do I need to pay for Funimation? Now it's all under one. So you're going to find pretty much most, if not every anime that is airing on those.
Yes. I was just going to mention that whenever I was a kid getting into anime, my go-to was Funimation, because Funimation used to stream anime with ads, and you could watch it for free.
I think they might still do that.
They might still do that to a degree. And maybe certain ones are free with ads, But just putting that out there. That's how I used to do it.
Yeah, I watched
Netflix wasn't really a thing, so
right. I watched it on Netflix. When I was like, I think I started watching it on Netflix when I was like 13 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there were, I think I may have mentioned this before, there were not a lot of kid-friendly shows on there.
Right.
Like half of the shows on, there's like maybe like 30 shows on there.
Mm-hmm.
And like half of them were like ecchi.
Right. Yeah. Which is sexual.
Which is like
explicitly sexual.
Explicitly sexual. And definitely should not have been watching that
right.
as a 13-year-old. But, you know, that's all I had. But now anime is much more widely available, and it's pretty much everywhere.
Right. So, you want to start with
Let's start with Hulu.
Hulu? Okay, let's start with Hulu. So,
because that's what we have the most for. Because of Netflix's new password sharing, we no longer have Netflix. And so I do have a couple, like, just side note, but I'll mention it after because I believe there's a couple doubles.
Right, yeah. So Hulu has a lot of anime, by the way. Both newer stuff and older stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Hulu also simulcasts, which is...
Yes, they do simulcast.
A couple shows, yeah.
A couple of shows. Well, that's a little bit more of a recent thing.
Yeah.
So I'll just kind of go down this list, and because it's kind of a big list.
Yeah,
so
we found quite a few.
Yeah, so I'll try to go kind of fast, especially since some of these we have watched and we have talked about. So, anyway, Spy X Family, great.
Yeah.
Some violence. But
there is violence, but I don't think there's any blood ever shown.
No. There's jokes like, I got shot in the butt.
Yeah.
So, do with that what you will. But for the most part, great show about being a family with child. So, like, it's pretty family friendly. My Hero Academia.
So My Hero Academia is definitely marketed towards kids. And for the most part, it is kid friendly, violent, because it is like, but it's violent in the way that superheroes are.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's that way. And, there are like 2 sexualized characters, but it's kind of like humorous. There's one character that she's huge, like her superpower is growing huge, and so they're like, oh, her butt is so big. And like, but nothing much more than that. But it is violent, but it is for the most part pretty kid friendly.
Right. Next, One Punch Man. So this one we put as over 15. So don't really recommend this for like children, because it does get more violent than these other ones.
It's very bloody.
It's pretty bloody. But it's also really funny. So it's hard to not recommend One Punch Man, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is definitely more of a...
Yeah, watch from One Punch Man with your teenagers.
Yeah, with the teenagers, though. So there's that. Demon Slayer. For the most part, once again, it's just a preference on violence.
Yes. So it is... they're slicing through demons.
They're slicing and dicing, yeah.
Okay, I kind of like forgot, but I don't think there's actually really any blood in it, though.
Not really.
Like, because I'm pretty sure the demons don't bleed.
They don't, but the people do.
Yeah, the people do.
The people do.
Yeah, but like, it's not like they're gonna slice through a demon and then blood is gushing everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, the demons, like, burn.
Yeah, but the people get really messed up from the demons.
Yeah.
Like, really messed up.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, so it is a preference on... It's a violence thing, because there is, once again, a lot of sword fighting, a lot of slicing, a lot of dicing. There is really only one character that is sexualized, but even then, not by a lot, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
she can't close her shirt.
Yeah, so. There's one character that she has cleavage, and then there's another villain that she is like a woman of the night, and
yes,
she does have a pretty revealing costume.
Yes, she does.
But like, it's like nothing is ever shown. Everything is always covered.
Right. Next, Assassination Classroom.
Assassination Classroom, if I remember correctly, there's no sexualize things in it, if I remember correctly. I think that there is one character that like she's like a seductress, but like, and that's like her method of choice for assassination, but like it's an adult, and I don't think it's really ever harped on.
Yeah. So I have not watched Assassination Classroom, but I read half of the mangas. So that's like how I know it. And for the most part, I mean, they are kids. They're like middle schoolers or high schoolers.
Yeah.
And I mean, they are assassins in training. So there is violence, but also the person that they're trying to assassinate keeps on like duping them.
Yeah,
so
he's an alien.
He's an alien.
He's an
so he
alien octopus.
So he keeps duping them so they don't ever succeed. So then like it's almost like the violence is nulled.
Yeah, exactly.
So
like there's it's, you know, they're not like, again, like blood gushing everywhere and like things like that.
It's like they're trying to make it happen and then they can't.
Yeah,
they're
and
like,
even
rats,
like
next time, I guess.
Yeah, and even like the assassination things are like, here's a knife, but it's like a plastic knife and it has like special coating on it.
It only hurts the alien and not the people. Yeah, so it's pretty. It's
Assassination Classroom is a good show.
Pretty kid friendly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna skip this one. Sailor Moon, classic Sailor Moon.
So both Sailor Moon, the original, and Sailor Moon Crystal, which was the remake, are both on Hulu. It's, if I remember correctly, it's actually also, both of them are actually also on Netflix, or at least I know Crystal is. Those are shows that are perfectly fine for kids. They're marketed towards kids.
Right.
There's one, dare I say, controversial thing, which is the the transformation sequence.
Yes. So the transformation sequence. I mean, for us as anime fans, it's a classic.
Yeah.
But it is young girls getting undressed and redressed.
Yeah.
But like in a really magical way.
Yeah, it's magical and nothing is shown.
Nothing is shown.
And like it's all like completely shined out because she's all full colors and like,
yeah, it's like a rainbow.
It's not really sexual. It's like you have to be pretty conservative to be like kind of like mad about it.
Right. Next, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. We put this as a must for if you're over 15.
Yes.
So it is violent.
Yes.
It is violent, and that's pretty much the main thing. But
it is also disturbing in some points.
And it is disturbing in some points. So that's the disturbing factor is the main reason why we put it as over 15. More for like we think that maybe you might need to be a little bit more mentally developed.
Yeah.
Cognitively developed to watch it.
I think I was probably about 14 or 15 when I watched it. And like it's one of those shows that are like a must watch for anime fans in general.
Right. Yeah.
And so like
you're gonna like it more if you're older though.
Yeah, definitely. And but yeah, it's good for your to watch for your teenagers. It's good for your teenagers. They'll thoroughly enjoy it.
Yes, it's really good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then so I'm actually just gonna put these together: Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Digimon.
Yeah.
All of those are like literally TV Y7.
Yeah.
So they are like some of the most squeaky clean that you can get.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because they are like for your elementary school kid. I'm just going to throw them all together. Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Digimon.
Yeah, I will say I'll talk about the two that I know. I don't really know Digimon very much, but Digimon is like super squeaky clean, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But Pokemon, the problem with Pokemon is that it's kind of hard to know where to start.
There's a lot of Pokemon.
I think a new season comes out literally every year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it's hard to know where to start. I think on Hulu they have X and Y, X, Y, and XYZ.
Right.
Which, if I remember correctly, is fine to start with. Basically, what's wrong with Pokemon is that why it's so hard to start is that sometimes some of the series build on each other. For the most part, they always start new. Like, here's Ash and completely new characters. You don't need any background to understand what's happening. The only exception to that is going to be the Alolan. What is it called? Sun and Moon. Pokemon Sun and Moon. That's like one of the only ones that you really have to have background knowledge on Pokemon to understand what's going on, because it builds upon what literally every single season that happened before. It like builds upon that.
Okay.
And then with Yu-Gi-Oh. So Yu-Gi-Oh on Hulu, I believe, is Y7.
Right.
But that actually kind of surprises me a little. Because Yu-Gi-Oh sometimes has some intense stuff in it. Like, there's like, I know that there's some parts with like guns in it, and there's a part where like someone gets their like brain melted. Like, it doesn't show, like they get like that, like, and then they go like brain dead. But like, it's still a kids show.
Yeah, it's still considered a kids show. Yeah.
It's one of those things which you probably have noticed by now that a lot of the shows that, even though they're marketed for kids, have a lot of violence in them.
Yes. Some of it, like we mentioned with My Hero Academia, is kind of superhero violence. Yeah. So it's like, oh, you can think of it as like you're watching the Power Rangers.
Yeah,
or like you're watching
Superman.
like old Superman, Batman, things like that, cartoons.
Yeah. But like, I don't, we've talked about this with like censorship in Japan and things like that, but like there are some things like Japanese wise that like are just way more okay for kids than they are in America. If you think of like American shows, like, yeah, there's like some violence in like SpongeBob, right? But like, not,
he's a sponge, so
yeah, he's a sponge. Yeah, exactly. There's like no blood in it.
Yeah, right.
You know, and like what's targeted towards kids in Japan versus what's in America is pretty different. I'll go.
Sorry, your dog is begging for attention right now.
But yeah, so let's continue.
Continuing. So next up we have Soul Eater.
Soul Eater is for your teenagers.
It's for your teenagers. Once again, pretty good. Yeah. For the most part. Violent. Once again, we're dealing with like death and souls and things like that.
There's also some sexual stuff.
Sexual characters.
Some sexual characters. It's a early 2000s show. Yeah. So it's to be expected, like nosebleeds.
Nosebleeds. I think one of the characters has, one of the Brooklyn Cowboys has big boobs. Like, I mean, stuff like that.
Yeah. The very first episode has like a sexualized character, but other than that, she's like never seen in the show.
Right. Okay. Love is War.
So this show is honestly really good for whatever age.
And it's pretty new too. Yeah. Right? This one's pretty new.
I think it came out in like 2016, something like that. And this show is good for whatever age. It is going to be more appreciated as like high schoolers because it is about high schoolers.
It's a slice of life, right?
Yeah, it's a slice of life. Basically, two characters, or a boy and a girl, they really like each other, but they're like the elite class. They're top of the top, and they don't want to admit.
They're academically in competition.
Yes.
So they have a complex.
Yes. And so there's nothing sexual, nothing like that. It's all good and fun, and it's really cute. And there's even an episode where the ending, where one of the characters does a silly little dance, is the ending. So it is good for all ages.
All right, Death Note.
Death Note is going to be your teenage
15 plus.
Yes.
So it is violent. Go ahead and put it, and it's maybe scary. I'm gonna say maybe scary because there are like demons in it.
And just to be clear, we were talking about the Death Note anime show, not the Death Note movie on Netflix.
We will never talk about the Death Note movie, but the animated show. So, for me, it's gonna be boring for young kids.
Yes.
It's gonna be incredibly boring.
I agree.
It's a lot of talking, a lot of like trying to one up each other with the smarts.
Yeah.
You know? So that's, I mean, for me, kind of my main reason for wanting it to be 15 plus, just because I know that the kids are going to think it's boring.
Yes. And I want to add upon what you said with the violence, in that it is not inherently violent, but there are a lot of there's a lot of
death.
So there's never
violent.
like a fist fight or anything like that.
No.
You know, it's a character has the ability to kill people by writing their name in a book.
Right.
And
so that's violent.
Yeah. So most of it is heart attacks.
Because he's insane.
Yeah.
He like is a psychopath. So you deal with that. But like I said, for the most part, I think that young kids would just kind of find it boring.
Yeah.
So
definitely. But it's perfect for your like 15 to 16-year-old boy that like feels like he's smarter than everyone.
The teenagers who are going through the edgelord phase.
Oh yeah, perfect for them.
Yeah. Okay. Next, toilet bound Hanako-kun. Now, we put this on here because in our time as going to conventions and speaking to other people, this is a really popular show with the kiddos.
This show is huge for the kids. I know nothing about it.
We don't know anything about it.
It's also relatively new, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So we put it on here because we know that it's popular.
Yeah.
I do not know anything about it. So I guess kind of like I don't know if this is a recommendation or not.
Yeah, just
but
something
it seems
to look
to
out
be
for. Like
really popular with kids.
Yeah, I doubt that there's anything bad in it, considering there's so much merch for it, even in like Kinokuniya.
Right.
Like
yeah.
there's so much merch for it, and it's all aimed towards kids. And so, it's probably a slice of life, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. Next, Black Butler. Once again, for your edgelords out there. So this one is kind of in this gray area of 15 above, below. I kind of don't know, because I think there isn't an issue with if it would be entertaining. I think it would be entertaining.
Yeah.
There are some questionable things. So the show begins as more of like a murder mystery kind of show. Right? So there is murder. There is like violence. Right? And then there is just some like there's a lot of innuendo. So maybe it'll go over kids' heads.
Yeah.
I can think of one instance of innuendo that I think would go over a child's head. But then there is another scene where it is pretty explicit.
In the first or second season?
In the first season.
Okay. Don't watch the second season. I'll say that straight out. Do not watch the second season.
The second season's bad. Don't worry about it. But I don't know. I kind of don't like. I don't know where to put.
To play it safe, I'd say 15 and up.
To play it safe, that's fair. It's still good though.
Yeah.
So, Your Lie in April, completely fine for kids. Very sad.
Yes.
So that's just that. It's like, once again, middle school or high schoolers.
High schoolers.
High schoolers. One of them has cancer.
Basically, yeah.
One of them has cancer, and we all know where that goes.
Yeah.
So it's on Hulu. It's safe for kids.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
Yeah. If you want, like, baby's first sad anime.
Yes.
Like, this is a good place to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ouran High School Host Club. Mandatory. Absolutely mandatory. I kind of don't care how old you are when you watch it. I think it's mandatory to watch it once every 2 years. So that's how I feel about Ouran High School.
Yeah. I mean, it's good for all ages for the most part. There's like one scene in the like beach episode where they comment about one of the girl characters' body, but like other than that, it's all pretty squeaky clean.
Yeah, the beach episode is definitely like the most quote unquote controversial.
Yeah.
Because there's other scenes in it too, honestly, but for the most part, it's pretty squeaky clean. Devil's a Part-Timer. Love this one. I also think perfect for kids.
Yeah.
Funny. adventurous. Good stuff.
There's
Good stuff.
the main girl character, the main love interest is like a little curvy, but I don't think they ever like really say anything about it.
Yes, she's curvy and she's young.
Yeah.
That's like another part of it though too. And then lastly for Hulu we have Appare Ranma, which is also relatively new.
Yeah.
And it is it's a wacky racer anime.
Yeah.
So
It's wacky races. Yeah.
it's just wacky races. I mean I forgot when it's based in, what year?
I don't remember.
Isn't it like
It's like 1800s.
yeah. It's like the Taisho era.
Oh,
Kind
I
of.
have no idea.
I don't know. But it's like it's old is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to get at. It's old, but then they it's old but new. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
And they build their own cars and they race across America.
Yeah.
And they're wacky and it's fun. So that's that. I wanted to say that most, not all of the ones that we mention in this little list are TV 14 on Hulu. That's what they marketed them towards.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I mean, but also to say that some TV 14 things I wouldn't recommend to kids.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So it's one of those just kind of like middle grounds. Obviously, stay away from TVMA, TV mature. Don't do that. And then also, obviously, if it's TVY7 like Digimon, it's probably fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
It's again one of those things like I mentioned earlier about like the rating system for America being different than the rating system for Japan, and level of violence mostly.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
mostly just violence.
Right.
And like tobacco use.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that. Now Netflix, I have a couple things written down. Like I said, I don't have a Netflix account, and so I couldn't look through everything. But these are some things that I found that I know are on Netflix.
Yeah, and there are definitely a few that I said in this Hulu list that are also on Netflix.
Yeah.
So if you have a Netflix, not a Hulu, you can still check out some of these and just see if they're there.
Yeah. Little Witch Academia.
Cute.
It is like, this is another show that's huge with kids. It is squeaky clean. It's all about witches in school, and it's perfect for kids. Teasing Master Takagi-san. This is a show about like elementary school kids, and it's basically just this girl like teases a boy. That is the entire concept of the show. Also pretty squeaky clean for obvious reasons, and kids should really get a kick out of it because it should be relatable for them. It's a show that's actually about kids,
right?
So I wanted to try to find at least a show that had kids in it, that 14 and under could relate to.
Right.
Kotaro lives alone.
Right.
This is a good kid show. It is pretty sad. It is pretty sad, but there are a lot of the main character is 6 years old.
Right.
So a lot.
And he's very responsible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so another one of those, it has a kid in it. It is a relatable kid show.
I love I just remember the opening joke because he lives alone, right? The whole thing is that he's a 6-year-old who lives alone, and he goes to his neighbor's house and he's like, hey, there's not a bath. What am I supposed to do about that? And the adult neighbor is like, there's a bathhouse down the street. And he's like, okay, I'll go do that. And then the neighbor goes back inside and there's a news story of a kid getting kidnapped. And he's like, man, why aren't the adults watching these kids? And then he remembers that he just told a 6-year-old to go to a bathhouse by himself. And he's like, I'm the adult. I'm the adult in this situation. So he gets his bathhouse stuff and he goes to the bathhouse with him. And the kid's like, you didn't have to come with me. And he's like, no, I didn't.
Yeah. Toradora is on Netflix. That's pretty kid friendly, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they have it's light cursing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Light cursing.
Yeah.
If you watch it Well, actually, I think regardless of if you watched it dubbed or subbed, there is light cursing in it.
Yes, so
very light.
If you don't want cursing in your kids' shows, stay away from that.
Yeah.
Good for like 15 up though.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
And then lastly, Cardcaptor Sakura, squeaky clean for kids. Is aimed at children. Mm-hmm. It is on the same level as like Pokemon and Digimon. Mm-hmm. It's magical girls collecting cards.
Oh, one that you didn't mention, that I just remembered. Cells at Work.
Oh, I couldn't find that on...
You couldn't?
No, I couldn't find that on either streaming service.
Really?
I think it's on...
it used to be on Netflix.
Yeah, it used to be on Netflix, but I'm pretty sure it's on Funimation now.
Okay, well...
that's why I didn't.
Okay, yeah. That's fair. All right, so then... Oh, and then I wanted to say that Disney Plus...
Yes.
Has the Studio Ghibli movies.
So does Max.
And so does HBO Max.
Yes.
Or Max.
It's just Max now.
Whatever. I have to say
yes,
HBO Max.
I know, right?
I do.
Yeah.
They both have Ghibli movies. That isn't to say that all Ghibli movies are for kids. Most of them are.
Yes. Kiki's Delivery Service, My Neighbor Totoro,
Spirited Away.
Those are going to be your top 3 for kids.
Yeah. I mean, I would even put Howl's Moving Castle in there.
Okay, yeah.
I would throw it in there. I think the only one that's like super iffy is Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, fair.
So there's that. Just wanted to throw that out there for movies.
Mm-hmm. And very last, if you look up lists for, doing research for this, I looked up lists of like good shows to watch, good anime to watch with kids.
Right.
And one that's brought up a lot is Naruto.
Yes, time and time again. And the thing is that makes sense.
Yes. So it makes sense because it's like perceived on the same level as like Yu-Gi-Oh! And things like that. And it is, in Japan, the target audience is like 7 to 10.
Right.
But like the show starts off with like heavy sexualization.
Yes, and I remember being surprised at that because I didn't start watching Naruto until I was in high school. Once again, I think I mentioned this on the podcast before. I watched it because I thought I had to.
Yeah.
Like to be an anime fan.
Yeah.
And I was not expecting the first episode to be like that.
Yes, throughout the show there's quite a bit of sexualization. There's also a lot of blood and a lot of violence.
Right.
And personally, I don't think that's good for a 10-year-old. Like, I can understand why it's like, because it's like, I'm pretty sure it's a Shonen Jump, like, anime
it is. Yeah.
or manga. But personally, I would not recommend it for 14 and under. Or I wouldn't, I'd say, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for like 13, 14 and under.
Right.
But 15 and up, like, if
That's
you're
fine.
Okay with like,
nothing
is shown, but it's like, very it's near.
I mean, so the show opens with our main character Naruto really only knowing one jutsu, and it's sexy jutsu, which is to turn Naruto himself into essentially someone who looks like Sailor Moon, a tall blonde, skinny blonde who is naked, covered
with clouds,
covering their bits with clouds.
Yeah.
So, in the whole purpose of the sexy jutsu is to be a distraction, right? So then you get the characters' reactions, the nosebleeds, the jaw drops, all that stuff. And then his mentor, Kakashi, only reads porn.
Yes. It isn't explicitly said like early in the show, but it is later whenever he gets a new master who is the writer of that book and is incredibly perverted.
Right. So, and those two facts that I just said are all in the first, at least 3 episodes.
That's in the first 3 episodes. Yeah.
At least. So, and I remember, like I said, watching this, I'm like, it's kind of a lot.
Yeah.
For
and then
a quote unquote kids show.
Yeah. And then like the first real mission that they go to is against like this swordsman where like at the end of it, like all of the townspeople stab like stakes and like knives into him. And like, it's a lot.
It's a lot
for a kid.
Yeah.
Like, like whenever I was a kid, I watched it and I was like, oh, yo, this is so cool. But like, it really depends on your parent preference.
Right. I think it's just like it's super teenage boyish.
Yes, yeah.
In its approach, which is one of the reasons why I didn't really like it whenever I tried to watch it. So that's kind of all I have to say about that. But that was definitely the one that we were like, this is kind of a common misconception.
Yes, yeah.
So I think that's it, though.
Yeah, that's it for today.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode where we went over some specifically kid-friendly animes.
Yeah.
This
is a little bit of a targeted episode.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Jared.
And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw.